Getting a new drug to market in Saudi Arabia can feel like a marathon, right? But what if I told you there's a shortcut, a way to slash that timeline? Today, we're diving into the SFDA's fast-track approval pathways. This is your insider's guide to getting your innovative medicine to patients way faster. Let's get into it.
Look, the goal here is pretty simple. It's all about speed to market. But the road to get there is lined with some very specific rules, a few tricky pitfalls, and honestly, some really brilliant procedural hacks. So we've broken down all the official SFDA guidance into a strategic playbook to help you win.
So here's what we're going to cover. We'll start with the 2 fast-track options. Then we'll hit the 4 non-negotiable entry roles. After that, we tackle the biggest technical hurdle, lay out your submission game plan, talk a long-term strategy, and we'll wrap it all up with a super simple checklist. All right, first things first. The SFDA has basically built 2 express lanes for innovative drugs that have already gotten the green light from other big global regulators. Let's break down what those 2 lanes are. Think of it this way. The verification pathway, that's the gold standard. It's for drugs that have already passed the super high bars of both the US FDA and Europe's EMA. Then you've got the abridged pathway, which is more like an express lane. It's still incredibly fast, but you only need approval from one of those agencies. Knowing which lane you're in is the absolute key to this whole thing. But before you can even dream about which lane to pick, you've got to get past the velvet rope. The SFDA has set up 4 really strict, non-negotiable filters. If you miss even one of these, you're not getting in. You'll be sent to the regular line, which is, a lot longer. Filter number 1 is all about what your product is. These fast tracks are exclusively for innovative new medicines. We're talking new chemical entities and biologics. Let me be really clear here. This is not for generics. It's not for blood products or advanced therapies. This is all about one thing: getting true medical innovation to the market faster.
Second filter, it's a stopwatch. And it is ticking. You have a very tight 2-year window. You have to get your application filed with the SFDA within 2 years of its very first approval from a reference agency like the FDA or EMA. This is really a strategic nudge to get you thinking about the Saudi market right from the start of your global launch.
Now for filter number 3, you got to look closely. Not all world-class regulators are on the guest list. The SFDA is super specific. Only approvals from the US FDA, the EMA, and it has to be the centralized procedure, and the USDA for vet biologics will get you in the door. So that means even if you have an approval from another great agency like Health Canada or Japan's PMDA, it won't qualify you for these fast tracks. And the final gatekeeper? It's all about geography. Where your drug is actually made matters. The manufacturing site for the finished product has to be in one of 20 specific countries on the SFDA's list. You see some of the big ones here: the US, Germany, Switzerland, Japan. If your site's not on that list, you're out, period. It's a huge strategic point you need to consider. Okay, so let's say you've made it past all 4 of those filters. Congrats. But now you're facing what is, without a doubt, the biggest technical challenge of this whole process. It's something the SFDA calls the doctrine of sameness. And trust me, this is where a lot of applications get into trouble. The main idea is right there on the screen: identical essential characteristics. What does that really mean? It means the product you're showing the SFDA has to be an identical twin to the one the FDA or EMA approved. Same formulation, same strength, same manufacturing process, even the same API source. And why? Well, because the SFDA is trusting the review that's already been done. They need to be absolutely sure they're looking at the exact same product. Now, the word identical does have a little wiggle room. On the not okay side, you can see the deal breakers. Changing the API source, the formulation, or the strength, no way. But on the okay side, the SFDA does allow for some minor changes, as long as you can really justify them. A classic example is swapping from a bottle to a blister pack for better stability in the local climate. That's fine, if you explain it properly. Okay, enough of the theory, let's get practical. We've talked about the what and the why, so now let's get into the how. This is your playbook for building the dossier, using a couple of key tricks and understanding just how fast this can all happen. Here are 3 huge pro tips for your dossier. First, you absolutely have to submit the complete, unredacted assessment reports from the FDA or EMA. Public summaries like EPARs are not going to cut it. Second, and this is a game changer, you don't have to wait for your long-term GCC stability study to be finished. You can actually get approval just by committing to do one later. That is a massive time saver. Okay, listen up because this might be the most important practical tip in this whole explainer. Just submitting your application and paying the fees online isn't enough to start the review. You have to send a separate designation request email to this specific address. If you miss this step, your application is just going to sit there, going nowhere. That email is the go button. And here's the big reward for doing all that work. If you qualify for the verification pathway, meaning you have both FDA and EMA approval, the SFDA's target review time is just 30 working days. I mean, think about that. That's about 6 weeks from hitting send on that email to getting a decision. That is just an incredible advantage. And even for the abridged pathway, where you only need one of those approvals, the target is still an amazing 60 working days. That's about 3 months. When you compare that to a standard review that can easily take a year or more, you really start to see how much of a game changer these pathways are. So you got the approval. Time to celebrate, right? Well, yes, but your strategic thinking can't stop there. Choosing one of these pathways actually affects your product for its entire life, and there are a couple of really important gotchas you have to know about from day one. Here is the biggest gotcha of them all. Whichever reference agency you choose for your initial approval, let's say it's the EMA, you are now locked into that choice for life. You can't come back later and submit a variation that's based on an FDA approval. There is no mix and matching. So this is a major strategic choice you have to make up front. And here's a really nice hidden benefit, kind of tucked away in the FAQs. Remember that list of 20 countries for manufacturing? Well, if your site is on that list, the guidance says that a site inspection won't be a barrier to getting your drug registered. This strongly implies a potential waiver, which would remove another huge, time-consuming step from the process. Okay, let's bring it all home. To make all these rules totally clear, we're going to look at a couple of quick case studies, and then we'll finish with a final checklist of the absolute must-dos and must-don'ts. This really shows you how it works in practice. On the left, we've got the perfect candidate, a new biologic with both FDA and EMA approvals, both less than 2 years old, and it's made in Germany. Checks every single box. They're on the 30-day verification track. But on the right, a generic drug, approved by the wrong agency, too long ago, and made in the wrong country. It fails on all 4 criteria, not going to happen. So if you remember just one thing, make it this. This is your cheat sheet. Do check all 4 of those eligibility rules first. Do get your hands on the full unredacted reports. Do send that critical designation email. And do stick with the reference agency you chose. And on the flip side, don't even think about submitting a generic. Don't use public reports. Don't forget to declare sameness. And don't try to mix and match your reference agencies down the road. So, you see, mastering these pathways is about way more than just one approval. It's a really powerful strategic weapon for a major global market. So the question I'll leave you with is, now that you have the playbook, how are you going to use it to create your next big advantage? Thanks for joining me.